Look at you, making hypotheticals. You know how stupid that is? No. Let me be chill, let me be calm, right? You're making yourself suffer for no reason. No one's out to hurt you, nobody's out to get you. Your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever isn't cheating on you. Friends aren't conspiring against you, at least I hope not. You have to forget that old programming of being in survival mode if you want to thrive. Forget that old programming of being in survival mode if you want to thrive. Thrive by breathing, consciously breathing and taking care of yourself and being present and observing the things in your head and, you know, disidentifying from, right? All presence is being the observer, being empty-headed, you know, you're the watcher. Observing is the challenge, but it's one you should always welcome. All right, but, you know, it's really just being super observant, and then there's super observant too, and then there's to go even further beyond. They're gonna laugh. No. My bad. My fault. It's just about being super present and observant, right? And what I mean by observing is you're closing your eyes and you're looking at that feeling, that emotion, that event that happened, that hypothetical that's running through your head, you know, that fear, and you're just closing your eyes and you're just letting it play out in your head, and you're letting it play out, and it's just, you can just kind of see that it's separate from you. And even though it's there, it's separate from you. Just observe, don't judge, don't interpret, don't do anything, just watch. Emotions are gonna come up, but you're gonna realize if you're watching and you're just watching who's speaking or what's speaking and claiming to be you, that has been claiming to be you, you know? Who is actually suffering? You know? Like, as Moji would say, look in the story, but don't let yourself fall into it. You'll see that you're the reader of the story and not the people in it, or not the person in it, not the thing. The reader wouldn't be a reader without anything to read. So it's kind of like there's no separateness from these things, but you also have to know that it isn't you. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. It's gonna be like trying to stand at the end of a black hole and not getting sucked in, because it's just so emotionally charged, but you just realize that it's kind of just misguided energy on your part, you know, energy that you have to claim back, in the sense of, if you had a choice with that energy, oh my gosh, hold on. If you had a choice with that energy, you probably wouldn't have let it get misguided. But, you know, we always have a choice. You have to realize you have a choice on how you feel and how you let things make you feel. It's not going to be easy. Sometimes, some days you're going to fall in. Never give up, though. Never give up. You got to understand, it's not going to be easy. You're fighting X amount of years of that feeling or that perpetual mindset or these hypotheticals that you haven't really gone into and looked into. And you don't have to go journal 30 pages to solve this. You know, you just got to kind of see that it's separate from you, and then you can free yourself from those feelings, those hypotheticals, those emotions. Don't judge how you feel. Don't judge the story. Don't interpret the story anyway. Just let the story play out, and you'll just see. It's just like, wow, you know, and you kind of get, when you're being really present with it, you kind of get more of you learn how you feel a bit better, you know, because when you close the book, you're like, wow. You know, I kind of let this play out, and there's a lot more than that actually happened that I didn't make up, or, you know, that you just remember, you know. Feeling that infinite life permeating through you while you're going through this process gives you like a freedom and a peace and a power. Like, it's just like when you're being present, you just kind of feel, you can feel like, you know, yeah, we feel our bodies with proprioception. I'll probably have it on the screen, like right here or something, in a definition, but that's just like how we observe, that's how we recognize space, I believe. I could be wrong, I don't know. I think that's, yeah, it's like how we observe space, or like how we observe or feel ourselves in space. And that's just like, you know, yeah, we have that, but me being present, you can feel like almost everything. And you can also kind of tune into that and, you know, see what's actually, if you injured, you can see what's wrong with your body. Not like, I'm gonna go in and I have this ailment. You just kind of be like, if you're ignoring your body, you can be like, oh yeah, my foot's hurting, you know, something like that. You can do it with any feeling, any hypothetical. You can do it with happiness, right? It doesn't have to just be negative things. This piece isn't some Zen-like piece. You've experienced it before. You probably experienced it in like a really awing experience. Oh my gosh. A-W-E-I-N-G. I don't think that's a word, but awing experience in the sense of you were in deep awe and you kind of, your mind was clear and you just felt everything. You just really, you were there. You were very, very present in that experience. All presence is just now, right? It's not thinking about the future, not thinking about the past, or if you're thinking about it, you're thinking about it from the now and not getting sucked into the past or the future. It's just that all is like a clear-headedness. It's just, you did it out of, it was like unconscious when it happened. You know, you didn't voluntarily do it, but you can voluntarily do it. You know, maybe in a stressful situation, your mind was clear, like your mind's clear, like your body is like, hey, we need to be here right now. We ain't got time for thinking about anything else. You can do that at any moment if you know how to do it, you learn how to do it. We experienced it before, that awe. This has probably happened while it was something beautiful happening or something breathtaking or just something that just left you in a state of your brain couldn't fathom what you were looking at in a good way. And it, you know, it didn't try to. It just let you be there and experience it. But you can consciously do that. And in contrast, your brain kind of does that in a stressful situation too. Because your brain is like, hey, look, we can't be thinking about anything else. We got to be here right now, and we got to do what we got to do. It's no, you know what I mean? It's not going to be any thinking about, man, why did he do that to me? You know, you trying to save yourself. You trying to save your life and stuff like that. You trying to run from this danger, or you're not trying to think about any of those things. Your brain is not going to allow you to do that. It's not, trust me. But you know, when this could also explain why some folks are thrill seekers, right? They unconsciously chase that feeling in dangerous or like thrilling situations, like where their brain clears, like people who like to go fast in a car or something like that. People like to skydive, you know, rock climbing, like mountain climbing, let's say that. Just, you know, thrill things where you kind of don't have time to think. It's just present, base-to-base action, you know. And if you think, like thinking could mean death, so you just try not to do it. And that's why people chase those things.
With my mug on me. Oh, DD, oh, what it is? Oh, DD, what it is?
You can, you know, I'm not saying you're gonna feel as intensely present in those situations as you would just in a regular, normal, mundane day, but you can, it's just like a sense of peace. You know, you're not just, there's a sense of peace that's gonna replace that sense of anxiousness or loneliness you feel, because those things, yeah, they are valid, but they're just kind of not true, right? It's something that's trying to speak as you not being fulfilled in some way when it's never going to be fulfilled. It's going to constantly try to eat, consume, go do something else, go do that, go take this, go take that. You know what I mean? You're never going to feel that. You're never going to be fulfilled, if that makes sense. It's never going to work, because it's like that's a black hole, you know? That's a void. It's going to always be filled. It's going to always be one to be filled, right? But usually when you're in a tense situation, or just in situations where you can be emotionally charged.
Oh my God,
sorry.
bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
I don't know, like, you know what's up? It's the roof of your mouth. Regardless, look, like I was saying, you know, when you're in those situations where you're emotionally charged, being present gives you, you know, you're still allowing yourself to feel how you feel, but being present allows you that acceptance to feel how you feel. You're not rejecting it, because I feel like, you know, it's kind of like this. You're feeling a certain way and your body's rejecting it. So it's kind of like smothering it and it's like building pressure upon it. And that's really what makes you explode, right? When it's really just, so you just kind of like to accept, it kind of just goes up a little bit, then it dissolves and fizzles out on its own. Because you're kind of aware of how you're feeling. You know, being accepting of a situation allows a space in your head for that to fill up, you know, for that to fill up and for that to fizz out. You know, and you usually have an answer. When you're accepting and you're giving that space in here, you usually get a little bit of answer, from the source of something that give you how to deal with the situation, or just, you know, just gives you a bit more peace with it. It just gives you a bit more acceptance. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you don't have the answer today. Might not have it tomorrow. Might not have it next week. Might not have it next month. But it just, you know what I mean? You just kind of accept that you don't have the answer, and even that gives you a little bit of peace. And that's peace nobody can take away from you. But when you allow yourself that space to allow that emotion to happen, you kind of just observe, and you're just like, you know, you realize it doesn't make any sense. You kind of allow it to be, and you kind of just realize how, I wouldn't say not valid, they're not invalid, but they're kind of false, you know? It's just a rejection of a situation because the thing that tries to speak through you doesn't like what's happening to it, right? You know, there are some things that are objectively like, oh yeah, this shouldn't be happening to me, but it's just like sometimes when you're in the mood and all the mood is just a continuous, is that feeling continuously having a hold on you, if we're being honest. You just kind of realize how false these hypotheticals are, those like emotions, that like those emotionally charged reactions. You know, you just kind of realize that you kind of take a deep breath and you're just like, it's all right, it's gonna be, you know, we gonna be good. You know, we feel this way about it now and how we feel is valid, but it's, you know, it's just like what you might want to say when you're emotionally charged isn't what you need to say, you know? Being acceptive of these like situations, they kind of still your mind and allow space, you know, in those situations. You know, maybe the source can give you an answer on how to handle it, or maybe they just give you a little bit more peace, right? Because honestly, like when you really watch these emotions, when you're having an emotionally charged reaction to something, you feel like a rush in your body, and it's like a wave. It's like a giant wave, and it just comes and it kind of just dissipates by itself if you give it the space to do so, and you don't try to hold on to it at its peak. You know, you gotta kind of let it pass. But while you're like watching the wave go, you just kind of realize, and then as it's going down, like, you know, it might make sense when it's going up, but then as it's going down, you just kind of like, you know, let's try and be under a little bit more understanding here, like with myself and whoever I'm having a reaction to, you know. And you just kind of like realize how false it is, right? You're just like, I'm glad I didn't let this hold on to me, because I can act in a more manner that you probably would like to act. This right here is the true us, in a sense of emotions come and go. It's the thing that tries to speak through us, that holds on to these emotions as a bit of identity, because it's a bottomless void. It doesn't have anything, so it just tries to take. Even if it's something just like a negative emotion or a negative identity, you know what I mean? It can be, you know what I mean? It's just, you can just kind of see how false these things are, and it allows you to dissolve in these hypotheticals. How, you know, you look at these hypotheticals and you just realize how little sense they actually make when you like take a step back and you're not in the story, looking back at the story, just like, I have no, you know, and that's not to say, you know, like I said about the hypotheticals, and like, you can kind of see how little sense they actually make. You have no evidence based off this. It's just kind of like fear speaking. And fear is kind of an emotion that we all have. It's like a primordial emotion, right? And that's like a, you know, sometimes the ego is the thing that tries to speak through us, by the way. That comes and tries to hold on to those things to give it a sense of identity. And that kind of comes at a detriment to our true selves, because we're being constantly squandered by the ego if we don't really recognize that that's what it's doing, and I wouldn't say control over it, you know. And that's not to say, you know, the hypothetical things, that's not to say these feelings aren't valid, you know. They're real, they're there, obviously. There's real in the sense of this is really happening, but there's like, what's the truth in this? And that's usually false. The truth comes when you kind of like accept it as just false, you know. Usually like, this is not real. This is just fear speaking through me. This is just this speaking through me. This is that speaking through me, especially if that's not indicative of who you want to be. You can just kind of like I said about the fear thing, most fear is conditioned. Like, yeah, some things we're scared of, like when we're babies, some things we're not going to understand. Just people things, like you see something, you can tell when something is dangerous, right? This fire is coming at me. I need to get away from here. Then there's fear in the sense of an imagined false fear, because you're anxious and you're not accepting to the situation. Like just in general, you could just be chilling and you get a wave of anxiety. You're just not accepting of what's now. Like, and it's like, don't be starting about that. I'm not evaluating how anybody feels, but I've been there, but you just being anxious for no reason. They take medicine for it and all that. It's just like, you really just sit there and you can just kind of observe these emotions and these thoughts, and they just kind of come and go. They just come and go. Like, let me do a trick right now. Ask yourself, what's my next thought gonna be? Pause the video. You know what? I'll give you 10 seconds. What's my next thought gonna be? What happened? Nothing, right? That's the point. When you are aware of your brain space, nothing is going to come in there, or if something did come in there, it quickly came and went. Because like when you're present in your conscious, your head is kind of empty. You're not like a ditz or anything, but you're just kind of You chilling. There's nothing really to think about if you don't have to do anything. If you just chilling, you should just be chilling, right? I mean, all of this is an acquired skill, but it's not something that's gonna happen eventually. It's not an inevitable thing. They're laughing back there. But you're good, like you can just see the hypotheticals are just kind of conditioned fears from what you've seen, what may have happened to you before, what you've seen happen to someone else, something you read in a book, something you probably just heard on the radio and you weren't even consciously. The subconscious takes in everything and it just spits it out. The subconscious takes in everything and it doesn't know how to process the information. It's up to the watcher, the observer, to process that information for it. You're the observer. There's, the conscious, the subconscious, the conscious and the ego, the conscious and the big mind, little mind, yada, yada, yada. Look, let me give you let me segue into this perfectly, right? Think of Bleach. If you don't know what Bleach is an anime, right? The main character, Ichigo, has a hollow inside of him, right? When that's really just a part of his soul that he thinks is evil, right? When really it's just a part of his soul, but it's just misguided energy. It's
instinct,
right? White might be like, I'm not scared of this, but when Ichigo couldn't handle things, White stepped in. And that's what your ego, your subconscious, your little mind did. It took hold. It was like, this king is unfit. No. Perfect example. The subconscious is a horse and you're the rider. The king, queen, whatever, is unfit to the king, queen. The king, queen, the ruler is unfit to ride on me. So I'm going to buckle him off. If you aren't strong enough to handle me, you shouldn't be saying that you own me. You know what I mean? It's literally like, in that sense, it buckled you off because you couldn't handle it. And it would handle things for you. You were a ruler and it came in your castle and it's like, you're not doing things right. And it kicked you off your throne and it handled things. And until you come back in here and you declare, I'm the ruler here, I have command here, you're going to keep getting run by it your whole life. Look, we talking about hypotheticals. This all makes sense. This is a bunch of root things. The hypotheticals are more of tree branches or leaves, right? And we're attacking the root. You always want to attack the root. Yes, you can backtrack, but if you want it done, you go rip the tree out of the ground. It's not gonna grow no more leaves, right? I like trees, but don't rip no trees out the ground, no, bro. Be cool. Think about it. The reason why your mind runs all day is because you have literally an infinite pool of energy that's running in you all day. And when you're conscious of it, it's just energy, right? And it's gotta go somewhere. And if you only consuming negative things and you not watching what you're consuming, or you just not watching yourself, it's gonna go into the negative things. You gotta watch it and you gotta make sure that you're using it for you. You can use that energy, like there's a lot of things you're going to, like using the subconscious to get, to do a lot of things for you in your life. Maybe these words will resonate in you. Maybe these words are going to resonate in you, something that can be felt, not thought, because usually nothing worth doing is on the level of thought. Nothing worth it is on the level of thought, right? And that's not to say you should let your feelings control you, but most joy, there's, pleasure and joy, pleasure is mostly thought-based, right? Chemical-based and all that. Joy is just kind of like a, I don't know how to, it's not explainable. You can't really explain it. Like, look, man, be kind to yourself. You fighting a whole lot of programming. If you never really tried to actually tune into yourself, you probably fighting 15, 16, 17 plus years of programming just throughout your life, program fear and all of that, man. Your brain is wired and used to firing in these negative ways. It's not to say that it's bad, but we got to look at this objectively. It's kind of like how, like I said, something can be real. Yeah, something really happened, but was it true? Something can really be here, but your interpretation makes it true or false. No. Something can happen, right? Think about it like this. Think about it like this. When you, it's like, think about it like this. You could be objectively, you could be the strongest person on planet Earth. Subjectively, you might not feel that way. What I mean by something being false is that subjectively you feel like you're weak. You're literally the strongest person on the planet. Like, Somebody in terms of weightlifting or whatever, punch power, whoever, whatever. Everybody got tested with that, right? Who's gonna be strongest? Everybody on planet Earth bench press. You got the strongest bench press. If you feel like you're weak, that's false. That's objectively false because you're the strongest person on the planet. It's not like anybody on the planet is stronger than you. That's objectively a false thing. And that's what I mean by these thoughts. You could be, you know, and that doesn't make them not real, but they're false. We have to objectively call them as false. On the subject of be kind to yourself, right? If 95% of the serotonin is made in your stomach, why are you eating unhealthily? Yeah, it's cheaper to eat unhealthily and it tastes better, but you gotta look at it in terms of, you gotta do things to take care of yourself sometimes you might not wanna do, right? It's just, you gotta, that better have been recorded, but 95% of the you might be like, why am I unhappy? If you eat like trash, you feel like trash, and it's not to say you can have a balance, or you can't, it's not to say you can have a balance with it, you can 80-20, 90-10, right? Or maybe you can just completely ditch everything 100% right. But you just gotta know how your gut microbiome works. Different video. It's up for you to reverse that conditioning and the process is not inevitable. The presence makes this process easier and it helps with it. You can be genuinely happy with any step of progress you make, right? Or any step of progress you are in, right? Regardless if you're at 1 or 100, 0 to 5, regardless. And being happy with where you are and knowing that you're doing what you're doing and being happy with where you are boosts that process even further. It's kind of like a cycle, like the cycle of belief. We're gonna get into that another time. Till then, breathe and take care of yourself. All right, so I made an edit on the script. It was like, I wrote this script on the 10th. I wrote this script on the January 10th, and on the 13th, I edited a little bit of something. I'm recording it on the 16th. This is the 16th. I'm gonna record a couple more videos after this, but like on January 13th, I added, I might make this stuff sound way easier than it is. It's not easy, but honestly, think about it. No, feel it. Most of this stuff is like perspective. As complicated as you make it and as simple as you make it, that's what it is. You have a choice. Sometimes it won't be easy. Every day is not gonna be easy. Some days you might be on the back foot. Some days you might get knocked down, but sometimes you gotta get knocked down to keep going. Don't resist when you observe. The story will try and consume you, but don't fall in. Just see where that pain coming from. Who is speaking that pain? It will free you. Sometimes you have to accept that things are hard. Accept that the water is tossing you around and go with it, Don't try to fight the current. Accept that the water is tossing you around. Sometimes you gotta go with the water. You gotta go with the flow, right? You gotta sail. You can't row sometimes. So you just gotta sail. Just take it easy. If you know you're going in the right direction, sail. You don't have to row to get there any faster. Maybe you could row sometimes. Too much intention creates tension. That's something I had to learn. Kind of the hard way, but in terms of perspective, what I mean by perspective is just kind of make it easy as you can for you. I watched a lot of anime growing up, read a lot of manga to this day. I made myself an anime character, like the way I train, the way I just go about life. Every time I'm faced with a challenge, I see it as a fight. I mean, like a fight, like I'm not the rest of it. It's just like how can I, it's kind of like if somebody's coming up to you and charging at you with a fight, right? Somebody coming up to you trying to punch you, kind of like let that, let it flow. Like, you kind of judo throw them, hip throw them or something. Or you just, use their own momentum against you. Use that energy, that conflict is coming at you and just kind of go with it, right? In the direction you're going. It's not easy said than done, but heaven is right here in the midst of us. No heaven is in the past and no heaven is in the future. If your midst is rough right now, I don't mean just I'm accepting of this, right? That's not what I'm saying at all. Just accept that it is. Accepting that rough situation gives you that space, kind of creates a little bubble around you.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Protects you a little bit, because that's your space, that's your peace. You gotta protect it, right? You gotta fortify it, you gotta give it energy. When you accept the situation, you usually kind of find a way. All right, K out. I love y'all.